I forgot what question I asked you last. I think it was about the Kevin Watts fight. Was that the last fight that you had with Buckley?
Yeah, yep.
Okay,
Yeah, we
that was
broke
it.
up actually the next day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Let me see. Let me just get this together, man. Heck, I can't even understand my own stuff here.
Yeah.
Okay. After that, you broke up with him. You broke up with Buckley. What happened with that? You just no one ever heard from him again?
Um, no, I just decided to see. I wanted to fight 168. That was a relatively new division at the time. It just came into being, I think, in '87 or '88. But I just couldn't make 160. I hadn't been a 160 ever. Even in the amateurs, I used to have trouble making 165. And he just refused. He just wanted me to stay at 160. And I just kept telling him, like I lost the Lally and I lost the Watts. I just don't feel it. I can't make it. I'm not happy. And even after that fight with Watts, he still wanted me to fight 168. 160. He actually wanted me to go fight Harold Graham over in England, which would have been an amazingly tough fight. So I realized I couldn't make 160 anymore, so I just stopped calling him, and people said I wouldn't be able to get out of the contract, but I got a lawyer, and he sent back a letter, and we just that was it. It was just a clean break.
Mm-hmm. And your next fight was against Melvin Wynn. You won the WBF Intercontinental Super Middleweight Championship. How'd that feel, winning that title?
Really good. I knew it wasn't like a world title or anything, but Melvin was a very good fighter. He was a very tough, cagey fighter. And the main thing was I trained. It was the first time as a pro I could say I really trained hard and properly for a fight. And I went into it, and it was a tough fight for about 8 rounds. It was a really close fight, I thought. And then, but my conditioning and my desire kicked in, and the last 4 rounds I took over and won the fight.
Uh-huh. And then you fought Tim Little for the USBA Super Middleweight title. What happened in that fight? What do you remember that?
Similar to the 160, I had begun to outgrow the weight class, and it was a crazy thing. I couldn't hold during training. I couldn't get below around 171. I just couldn't do it. No matter what I tried. But the main thing was, at the time, I didn't know anything about nutrition. And if you know anything about nutrition, a person my size generally needs about 2,500 calories a day to sustain himself when training. I was eating, basically, for that fight, about 500 calories a day, which was just insane. I was eating once a day, training really hard, and on top of that, when I got to Las Vegas, I didn't take into account the desert heat. And once I got there, my whole body just dried out completely, and I was actually weighing 165. So I thought that was a good thing. I thought I was just, I was happy to make weight, but obviously I figured out that my whole body was just depleted of water, and that's why I dropped the weight so suddenly in the last, 8 days. All of a sudden, it just all fell off. And so when I fought, I basically, my skin was devoid of water, and I cut. And for the first time in my career, not only did I cut, but I cut 3 times really bad. Two over my eye and 1 under my eye. The one over my eye actually had required plastic surgery after the fight. And, so I spent a lot of the fight, with blood running in my eyes and the medicine running in my eyes. And Tim was a very good fighter. He threw a lot of punches, and he just kept me off balance, kept me from getting off first, and he beat me fair and square.
And Tim Littles was pretty good, though,
Yeah, no, I knew Tim from when we were amateurs. He was a world amateur champion. He was, at that time, he was a really hot guy in the super middleweight division.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be a great champ one day. I really did.
Yeah, no, he had all the tools and everything. Whatever happened, I don't know. He actually had Tony in a little bit of trouble there when they fought. He was on the brink of a victory, and James turned out to be greater,
Yeah, that was one of those fights that solidified James as great,
Yeah, for sure.
And was that fight on the Holyfield Bow undercard?
Yeah, the first fight. Yeah,
wow.
we were actually the last fight before Holyfield and Bow.
Oh, that's cool, man. Like, what kind of atmosphere is that like, fighting on that?
Oh yeah, that was it was crazy. I mean, after the fight, I was all cut up. I had lacerations on my face, and I didn't want to miss the Bow fight, and B, I just didn't want to leave the atmosphere. We didn't even have a ticket. That's how dirty it was. Like I could go into a whole thing about how they treated me, but we didn't even have tickets to the fight. We didn't have seats after the fight, so me and my trainer, we just walked all over the arena, just constantly moving, getting moved along by security. So I literally watched the Bow Holyfield fight from about 12 different angles, and but it was an amazing fight. The atmosphere was like. The best way I describe it felt like Roman gladiator days.
Yeah.
That's what it was like. Like the crowd was a big part of that fight. Really, really involved in the fight.
Yeah, those fights always felt special, when you were about to see it. It just felt like some magic shit was happening. I don't know.
It was especially that 10th round when either the 9th or 10th when Holyfield made that huge comeback. That was bananas. That was out of control. And really, the thing was, I stayed late too because there were so many celebrities, and they have this walkway in the back where they shuttle them all out and they all hang out back there. So me with my face all bloodied and cut, and I was back there and I was hanging out with Jack Nicholson and Matt Johnson, and I actually had a long talk with Charles Sutton, the actor. He was real cool. Like we talked for quite a while. He was a good guy. Martin Lawrence was back there. I mean, it was Rose Perez was there. It was Robert De Niro. It was pretty cool, So I actually didn't go to the hospital for quite a while after the fight.
Yeah. And what did Martin Lawrence do? Did he joke about your cuts?
No, actually, to be honest with you, he was talking to. It was him. Charles Dutton and the father on the show Rock. Remember the show Rock?
Yeah, Charles Dutton.
Yeah, Charles Dutton's father. His father on the show. And they were all talking, and I just remember I got a really bad vibe from the father and from Martin Lawrence. Like, they didn't seem to want to associate with me at all, while Charles Dutton was really cool. Like, he was actually talking to me, telling me about his prison days, and how we got started as an actor. And the funny thing was, we got interrupted by a fan who wanted his autograph. So I said, "Oh, no problem. See you later." And he went and talked with the fan for a minute. Then he came back to me and he said, "Oh yeah, so like I was saying," and he finished his story, which I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool being Ice John that night, I guess.
Yeah.
It would have been better if you won, though.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you fought Tony Thornton at the Blue. What's it like fighting at the Blue?
You know what? In a lot of ways, I didn't get to experience it. I actually talk about this in my book, where Tony Thornton was probably the only fight that I went into where I honestly didn't care what happened. I took the fight. I didn't think I was actually going to get a fighting, but because my cuts from the little fight were so bad that I had to have plastic surgery. And Teddy Atlas had seen me at a show in New York, and he told a mutual friend of ours that he didn't think I'd ever be able to fight again, that he thought my career was over. And so when the Thornton fight came up, I said, you know what, it's an opportunity to fight on TV, to fight the Blue Horizon. I always wanted to fight Tony Thornton, but I went into the fight, and I just, I was just having so much trouble with weight, and I just didn't care. Like, I had lost my spirit for boxing, and of course, my cuts opened up in the first round, all of them. Like literally halfway through the first round, it was like I was in the 12th round of the Littles fight. And, I still had my heart. I made it to 10 rounds. The referee at one point was going to stop the fight on cuts. And and I actually threatened his life. I told him I'd kill him after the fight if he stopped it. And he said, okay, son, relax. And I made it through. But after that fight, like literally, as soon as it was over, I retired. I stopped boxing right at that moment.
Yeah, how long did you take off then?
Let's see, that was March of '93, so I literally didn't do anything boxing-wise for about, I guess, 6 months. Mm-hmm. And then, I started getting an itch again, and I came back at the very end of the year and had a tune-up fight. And then I was actually in a groove. I actually felt refreshed, and it was like starting over. But the night of the Thornton fight, I just didn't care anything about boxing. I was done with it for good as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, I think you'd beat Tony Thornton. I can't see you.
No, I wanted to fight so bad. Just I felt like my style and that he would have been perfect for me. Like he was the perfect fight for me. But just circumstances, I just didn't care. I honestly just did not care.
Was there something going on in your life that made you feel that way, or did you just get sick of boxing?
I mean, basically it was the cuts. I mean, I just felt like I was having trouble with weight, and at the time I hadn't yet learned how to lose weight properly, so I didn't know what I was doing. I was just, heavy, and I couldn't lose the weight, and I was just killing myself. I was in a steam room every day. Like for that fight, I literally was in the steam room every day for 14 days in a row, right up to the weigh-in, including the day of the weigh-in. And I still barely made it. In fact, I might not even have made it for that fight. I might have came over like a half pound and they let it go. So I just, what I had to go through to get ready for the fight made the fight totally unenjoyable. And I said, if this is what it's got to be, then I just don't even want to do this anymore.
Yeah. Who trained you for that fight?
At the time, I was with a guy by the name of Pepe Vasquez out of Hartford. He was an assistant trainer for Marlon Starling for several years, and he was a real good motivator and everything. But he also didn't know anything about nutrition and that type of thing. And it was just, I just wasn't ready for the fight.
Yeah. And you fought Michael Nunn. Bring me through that fight.
Wait, say that. I couldn't hear you. Say that again.
I said, bring me back to the Michael Nunn fight. That was a good fight. I remember that fight.
Right. Well, the difference between me against Michael Nunn and Tony Thornton was, in the meantime, I had learned about proper weight loss and how to do it. And like I say, when I fought Thornton in littles, I was eating 500 calories a day. I just wasn't eating anything. My body was literally not strong enough to run around the block. By the time I fought Nunn, I had learned, and I was eating 2,500, 3,000 calories a day. I was really strong. Like, I made weight, put it this way, training for Nunn, for littles and Thornton, I barely made 68. Like, I struggled with 68. Training for the Nunn fight, I had actually got down comfortably to 66 and was feeling great.
Yeah. Weight makes a difference, man.
Oh, no, physically and especially mentally, I mean, it makes a huge difference. And, I'm living proof for that. I mean, I was two different people. But if I went into the Nunn fight like I did against Thornton and Little, he would have murdered me. It would have been really one-sided.
Yeah. What would you make of Michael Nunn that night? Like, what's so difficult about Michael Nunn? What makes him so good?
Probably the biggest attribute I think he had was that he was one of the most relaxed boxers in the world. I put him right up there with Roy Jones and James Toney in terms of his ability to just relax in the ring. I mean, it was almost as if he was just walking across the street on a Sunday afternoon, really calm. And I learned a lot from him in terms of that. But I did fight a good fight. I landed more punches. Even though he threw a lot more, I actually landed more punches. I landed more power punches. I visibly hurt him at least once that I know of. My connect percentage was much, much, much higher. I was very, very satisfied with my performance that day.
I think I watched that fight like 50 times. I remember the ring was blue.
Yeah, I've actually never watched it, to tell you the truth. But I know that the next morning, either on TV or the next morning in the lobby, I remember Al Bernstein saying that that if that John Scully would have fought his whole career like that I would have been undefeated at the time that I came into the fight with man. And I believe that. I truly believe it. I know that for a fact. I believe it.
Yeah. I mean, if Al Bernstein says it must be true. You know?
Yeah, I mean, and it's just knowing what I went through for the losses and knowing how I felt for the non-fight. I mean, it was just a 90 day. It was two different people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You look totally different. You look great in a non-fight.
Thank you.
And then you went to Germany and fought Henry Maskey. What's it like going to Germany? What do the people treat you like there when you're there to fight?
It was a very good experience in that respect, but now, my career is like a real, just an amazing, odyssey. What had happened was, when I fought my mother had gotten sick, and we didn't really know exactly what the situation was. But by the time the mask fight came around, we realized that she had actually had cancer, and the cancer had destroyed her spine, and she was paralyzed, and bedridden, and basically, I guess you stay on a deathbed. So my whole time training for that fight, for the mask fight, I was away from home, and I wasn't really. It's amazing because I was fighting for the world title against an elite champion, and it was just the timing of it. My mother was sick, and she wasn't going to last much longer. And as luck would have it, I mean, just the way my career has been, par for the course. The day I left for Germany from Florida for my training camp, after my run in the morning, I called home, which I did every day. And the police answered the phone the day I left. And they had just taken my mother to the emergency room. Something happened. She stopped breathing, or I forget exactly the situation, but they took her to the emergency room that day. So I actually was trying to decide, I mean, do I go home, don't go to Germany, what do I do, And I talked it over with my father, and we decided that I should go to Germany. So, I went. I was literally on the plane to Germany, not knowing if my mother was dead, what the situation was. So, needless to say, my time in Germany was a little bit preoccupied. I'm good, thank you. My time in Germany I was very preoccupied, and that combined with the fact that I had just lost none a few months earlier in a fight that I didn't get credit for anything. Like they made the score so wide that I kind of said to myself, if I can't get a decision, even a close fight with a guy with a star in my own state, how am I going to come over to Germany and beat their Ali? So I went to the fight just trying to fight, but I just had so much against me, and it was like trying to climb a mountain, and everyone's telling me, climb, keep climbing, you can do it, but deep down, I knew I couldn't do it. I just knew the timing wasn't right, and Matthew was good enough where I may never have been able to beat him.
Yeah. You can't fight when your mom's sick like that anyway. It's like, what can you do when you're training, and it's like you can't even focus on it. Buster Douglas is like the only guy I ever heard of that can do that,
Right. Well, the thing is, his mother actually passed away already. So he trained with, vigor, whereas me, every day I was just wondering, am I going to call home tonight and she's going to be gone? I mean, do I have to live for the rest of my life with the knowledge that I was here and not there? Was boxing more important than her? I mean, it was a really tough spot.
Yeah, it sucks, man. It sucks. So how long did she live after that?
Let's see, that fight was in May. She passed away in September.
Yeah. That's terrible, man. I feel bad about that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
How old was she?
What was she? 66.
No.
But the thing was, she was a lifelong smoker, and, so I imagine that didn't help her case.
Yeah. Then you fought Graziano Rakhajani in the next fight. What was that like?
That fight, I mean, to be honest with you, I thought it was a much closer fight, like the Gunzz fight. I actually, after the fight, I felt like I wanted a rematch. I felt like I could beat him. If we fought, under, more fair circumstances, I felt like I could have beat him. I fought him in Germany in a non-title fight, meaning that it was literally not just 3 German judges, but 3 local judges. It was just it was like him coming to Hartford for a 10-round fight. He would have had a judge from Bristol and a judge from Hartford and a judge from Windsor going against him. I thought that I fought a good fight. I thought I gave him a little bit too much respect. I expected probably a lot more from him. I kind of got fooled in a way. I just gave him probably too much credit. I thought my style matched up well with his, and that was one of those fights that I thought a rematch I could have beat him, but he beat me fair and square.
Mm-hmm. What about Drake Fatsy? How hard did he hit?
You know what? I honestly don't remember feeling anything bad. Forget about the Maskey fight. Forget about the Storm fight. Forget about those fights. That fight was the worst experience of my entire life. Other than my mother dying, me being there for that, that was the worst. It was insane what I went through for that fight. I literally, the day of the fight, in the hotel, I was supposed to go over the arena about 7 o'clock. At 6:30, I was on my bed with my bags packed, ready to go home. And I was just sitting there, and I was just saying to myself, I got to go home. I got to drive. It was 2 hours to my house. I'm just going to drive home. This is crazy. I'm not ready for this fight. My weight is terrible. I had lost tons of weight, including 8.5 pounds the last night. The day before the fight, I had to lose 8.5 pounds to make it. And I just, 2 hours before, not half an hour before I was set to report to the arena, I said to myself, I'm going to go home. This is crazy. I shouldn't be in a ring. This is stupid. I'm going to get killed tonight. And I just kept debating whether I should go home or not. And I went to the arena, and I just fought, and it was just terrible. I couldn't throw. It's not that I didn't throw punches. I just didn't want to throw punches. I didn't care. I almost wanted to get beat bad just so that I'd have a good enough reason to really stop boxing. I needed somebody there with me who knew fighters, and actually that fight shows me what a trainer I am now, because I'm there for my fighters. I wouldn't let any fighter go through what I went through. I wouldn't put them in a fight that night. But nobody around me couldn't even notice that I was just miserable. And I went into the fight, and the only time in my life I got stopped, and I got stopped only because I wasn't punching back, not because I was getting hit. I could have fought, the way we fought, I could have fought 100 rounds at that pace and everything. It would have been easy. But I just wasn't there. He literally beat a dead man that night.
Did you feel like it was more physical, the change in your skills, or did you feel like it was like a physical thing or mental?
Oh, no, it was a mental. I mean, my mother passed away. I had already lost in a world title fight. I was getting older. I was having trouble making weight again. I guess that, I wasn't as dedicated, maybe, whatever. There's so many things. I just was burned out by boxing, I guess, and I just didn't want to fight. And but I was always too stubborn to. Ever since I was a kid, I was always that person. Like if I had an earache, a bad earache, which I get a lot when I was a kid, I would never cry. I would never tell anybody. I would just keep the pain to myself. I was the type I never tried to look for help from my parents or anything like that. And so when I was going into the fight, I just figured I'll just go through it. I'll just face it. And where I needed someone with me to go, hey, are you in pain? What are you doing? You can't fight like this. But I didn't have that, and I was on my own, and I let my pride push me into doing what I was, what I promised I would do, and that's go through with the fight. And I paid for it. I mean, I just didn't have any spirit. I mean, I just didn't want to fight. It was just so, I just hated it. It was similar to the Tony Dorn. It was very similar to the Tony Dorn fight, in that I just have no desire to fight whatsoever.
And you decided to retire after that, not too long after. What?
Oh, no, I retired in the ring. I told Al Bernstein on the air. If you ever see the fight, I've never watched it, but I told Al Bernstein on the air in front of the whole live TV audience, I said, I quit And I was so upset. I quit. And he goes, all right, so, you're going to retire? I said, no, I quit. And I think I even said, I hate boxing. I hate training for boxing. I hate losing weight. I just am sick of boxing. I don't want to fight anymore. And I meant it. I really actually meant it. And I went home that day and I remember thinking to myself, I don't care if I never see another gym in my whole life. I don't think I ever go to a gym again. It's like when people love pizza. They love pizza, but they one day they just have eaten so much of it and they say themselves, they have an upset stomach and they're like, I'm never going to have this pizza again as long as I live.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, a few days later when they feel better, they want some pizza again.
Yeah.
But that night, and for quite a while afterwards, I meant it. I did not want to box again. I didn't want to train. I didn't want to spar. I didn't want to do anything. And the indicative thing of it was I weighed 174 for that fight, and 2 days after the fight, I weighed 193. So that'll tell you what I went through.
Yeah. Tell me about some of the sparring matches you had. You sparred Mike McCallum. What was that like?
That was an amazing honor, and it was a great thing because it was totally unplanned. I was actually out in Las Vegas with a fighter who had a fight coming up, and I was in my hotel room, and I remember I was in the hotel eating an ice cream cup, and all of a sudden I got a phone call that Mike McCallum was over at Johnny Tacos, and his sparring partner didn't show up, and he needed sparring right away because he was leaving the next day for England to fight Michael Watson. And I remember I jumped up and I threw ice cream in the cup in the can, and I got a taxi. And I went right over there and I jumped right in the ring, and it was just an honor. And I lived for moments like that to be able to spar with guys like that. Especially at that time, I was really anxious, and he gave me a lot of compliments after. He said that he wished he had met me sooner, that he would have used me for sparring for the whole camp. So yeah, that was an honor. That was something special.
How about James Toney?
What's that?
How about James Toney? Sparring James Toney?
James, it's a funny thing. James and I actually consider him now one of my best friends in boxing. Me and my buddy. But at the time, I had never met him, and I didn't, I didn't really care for him that much because of his attitude on TV and things like that. But when I got the offer to spar, I just wanted to spar him and see what it was like. And I went there, and we had really good work. And the funny thing was, I started hanging out with him at his house, and he was just totally different than everything I had built him up to be. Really cool guy. Like I said, that was next year, it'll be 20 years ago that happened. And we, to this day, we still talk on the phone. He's good buddies. He's a real cool guy. But the sparring with him was just like the fights. I mean, he talked so much trash, and he got so nasty every day in sparring that I used to think that we were enemies, that I did something, and now we're enemies. I honestly thought, oh man, I guess we're not friends anymore. But then once I started talking trash back to him, he liked it. And I remember his friend, Jimmy, was like his right-hand man. He said, oh man, James loves that when you talk back to him. He respects that. And so we spent 5 weeks just basically talking trash back and forth every day, and it was exciting. It was great, but it was also a great learning experience. And it was actually the fight I sparred with him. When was it? It was what year was that? 90. Must have been August of '93. So that's actually what got me back into boxing. Like I was after the Thorns fight. I wasn't into boxing. I hated boxing at the time. But when I got an offer to go spar James, like instantly a switch was flipped, and I got right back into the mode. And sparring with him actually gave me the desire to come back and box again.
Oh, that's cool. What about Roy Jones?
Roy, whatever I did in boxing, like I owe a lot to him, just because I always said sparring with him, I would have done it for nothing. Like getting paid to spar with him was just icing on the cake, because I honestly would have done it for free, because I just, he was the best. He was the best in the world, and sparring with him made me not worry about anybody else. And even when I fought none, and I think one of the reasons why I went into the none fight so confident was because of all the sparring I had done with Roy and with James. And I said to myself, there's no one in the world that's going to be as dangerous and as fast and as sharp as Roy Jones. So there's nobody that can match up with this guy. So if I can hang with him for weeks at a time, then I can hang with anybody, and that's how I lived my life after that.
Yeah. How fast is he?
I mean, he's every bit as fast as you think he is. Especially when he wanted to be fast, when he wanted to show his speed. And but not just that, he was very smart fighter. He knew. I had a lot of moves myself. I have a lot of smart moves that I've used in my career on champions, and a lot of stuff that worked on other people didn't work on him. He knew all the tricks as I was trying them. He would catch on, and so he made me think. He made me think a lot more than I had to do with other guys.
Yeah. How sad do you get watching him fight now?
Yeah. You know what I'm sad about? I'm sad about very similar to Hector Camacho at the end of his career, where people that are 18, 16, 15, 20 years old watching him, they don't know what all the hype was about.
Mm-hmm.
They say, the guy wasn't that good. I mean, you guys are exaggerating, everybody should be forced to watch Macho Camacho in 1983. They should be forced to watch Roy Jones in 94, just to realize, who you're actually talking about here.
Yeah. Yeah. You said it. Yeah. And what was Vinny Pazienza like sparring?
Vinny, I love sparring with Vinny more than anybody I've ever sparred with in my life, and I've sparred with upwards of 1,000 different people. And Vinny sparred like he fought. Like we went to war. We fought. I mean, if you could knock him out, knock him out. If he could knock you out, he'll knock you out. Like he went for the big shots, and he got lost in it. Like he was wrapped up in it. And I was the same way. So Vinny, if you want to have fun and go really get into a fight, you went and sparred Vinny Paz.
Mm-hmm. And let's see, my computer's messing up on here. Hold on, Reese. It's almost over. Do you spar with Chad now?
I haven't sparred with Chad in a couple of years. I mean, once I started training him, I actually have kind of a joke thing, but when we used to spar, the one thing that he, for me, was susceptible to was the jab. I have a pretty good jab, and he was doing this like technical mistake that was allowing me to catch him with the jab. And when I first started training him, I corrected that. And I told him, I said, you're not the guy that should be getting caught with the jab. You should take that away from people, and you should have the best jab in the world. And after I was teaching him that, and after he really started mastering it, I figured, man, now I've taken away my best attribute against him. So this at my age, this sparring might not be so much fun anymore. So we have a trainer. I need to watch him, as opposed to being in with him.
And I'm getting a phone call now. I don't know what's happening with my computer. Like it just keeps moving down by itself all the way down.
Yeah.
Who else you spar with that we would?
I actually went back after we fought, and I sparred Henry Nasty for 3 weeks. And it was a funny thing. We, boxing is mental. It's a really mental game. And when I first went there, I had just lost to him in my previous fight, and his style was really, really difficult. And I was trying to be, just trying to do the best I could, just trying to work hard in the gym. And when I first started sparring with him, it was like the fight. It was hard to get through to him, and I kind of accepted that. I was just there for sparring. I had no fights coming up. But about halfway through the training, about two weeks into it, his trainer kind of insulted me one day. I don't know. He said something in German to somebody, and he kind of insulted me, and he just kind of had a way about him. I didn't really get along with him. And from that day on, I said, you know what? I'm not going to try and just work hard. I'm gonna be me. I'm just gonna fight like I fight, and whatever happens, happens. And I started boxing more of like what I call an American style. Like I started dropping my hands, and I started fainting, and I was really energized. In the last like 7 sparring sessions, I honestly can say I really got off. Like I really had some of the best sparring I've done in my life, and I know Henry was surprised, and the trainer, I would do certain things to Henry, and then I would look over at the trainer, kind of like taunting him. And my friend who was with me, one of the sparring partners, he took me aside. He goes, "Man, you got to stop doing that, man. They're gonna end up taking us out in the woods to killing us one day. They're gonna leave us out here. You're being too cocky." But I really hit a groove, and it was only sparring. It wasn't a fight. It didn't count something, but I really felt like I made my point. I boxed well, at least on even terms, and Henry and I actually, after that, we got to be friendly, and I actually saw him in Germany last year when I was there for a fight, and we had a nice reunion. It was really good to see him.
Yeah, that's cool. Does he speak English?
Not much. Just enough for me to communicate with him, but not to have a deep conversation.
Yeah. I always wonder why more American fighters don't want to go there. I could see not getting ripped off, but the atmosphere is so electric. I think I'd want to fight over there.
Well, the atmosphere is great, but it's like whoever comes to fight is not, like they're there. The vibe is that okay, you're a good fighter, but you're not gonna win. Like you're just here. You're just you're just a face that's here. When I knew I was in trouble with Maskey, when I knew, something was up, I remember I went into the mall next to the hotel to get something, whatever. And I remember there was a huge beach towel. Now, usually the beach towel has Mickey Mouse on it, or Wonder Woman, Superman. And this beach towel, and it was spread out, hanging from the roof, and it had Henry Maskey on it. And I remember when I saw that, I was like, man, how am I going to beat this dude over here? Like their stars are bigger than our stars. Yeah. Like everybody that's a big star there is a Tyson level star. Yeah. He's not just big like a Kelly Pavlik in Ohio and that type of thing. I mean, when you're Henry Maskey, every single person in the country of Germany knows who you are. Everybody. Mm-hmm. There's not one person that doesn't know who you are and is not rooting for you.
You're right. You're right, man. And who's the trainers that you look up to the most that you try to pattern your training style after?
To say the truth, I've dealt with and been friends with a lot of trainers over the years. I actually have 3 that I kind of pattern myself. A mix of 3. I'll tell you what they are. One is Freddie Roach, and what I like about Freddie is I'll give you one example that'll put it all in perspective for you. I was in Los Angeles before De La Hoya and Pacquiao fought, and a couple of weeks before the fight, I guess. And Pacquiao had just got done training, and they opened the gym, to talk to everybody else. He trained by himself, so he had just left. I actually passed Pacquiao on the way in, and he was coming out. So I go in the gym. Now, Freddie had just got done training the super champion for the multi-million-dollar fight, and I remember Freddie was sitting in a chair, and he was wrapping the hands of like a kid. The kid couldn't have been more than 10. Maybe 9, maybe 10 years old. He was wrapping the kid's hand, getting the kid ready to train. And I just saw that, and I said, you're not going to see that. The elite trainers working with the multi-millionaire fighters, 5 minutes later, they're not wrapping the hands of the 10-year-old kids getting ready to train them. So when I saw that, I knew I was on the right track, because that's kind of my style, was something I would do. The other guy is Dickie Eklund, who I remember years ago at my gym. He was in the gym with a fighter who had a big fight on ESPN coming up. And I remember after they were done training, after the kid was done sparring, Dickie took him in the back and was doing exercise with him. And I remember the kid kept quitting, and Dickie wouldn't quit. And Dickie was talking to him and laughing at him while they were doing the exercises. Dickie was telling him, "Come on, get your legs up. Come on, what are you, a baby? Put your legs up." And, Dickie had just come off, prison and drug rehab, and he was older, hadn't fought in 15 years as it was. And here he was, just a physical specimen, wearing his fighter out. So when I saw that, I knew that was something I wanted to do when the time came, and that's me right now. And the other one is a guy by the name of Russ Anber, Anber, out of Montreal. He was a trainer for Otis Grant, Hercules Cafellos. He's worked with a lot of fighters, and he's like me in that, and I'm like him, I guess. He's a trainer. He's not the guy that just sits in the chair and tells you to hit the bag, tells you to run tomorrow. I mean, he from the time you come in the gym to the time you leave, he's right next to you. He's working with you. He's pointing things out. He's working on strategy. He's a hands-on trainer, the way you're supposed to be, and the way a lot of guys aren't. So I definitely pattern that. I'm that type of trainer. So I've kind of taken those three guys and molded them together to make myself.
Who are you training right now? Are you training Chad and anyone else, or are you just?
Right now I'm in camp. It's just me and Chad. I have a lot of amateurs back home that I'm training. We actually had a fight show just the day before I left for here. I was at a show in Connecticut. We have my amateur guys fighting, and I have a couple of 4-round kids, up and coming fighters that I've been working with. But Chad's obviously a priority, and my everyday amateurs, those are a priority for me.
And what's your relationship like with Chad? Real close relationship?
I think we have a great relationship. I mean, he's a fighter that, like last night, for example, after training, I went in the ring with him, and we just talked for about 10 minutes about training and about, the mental aspects of the game and what he needs to do. And he's probably one of, if not the most responsive fighter I've ever dealt with in terms of when I talk to him, he listens and he understands boxing and he knows what I'm trying to do for him, and he wants to try it. He tries everything I tell him. He's what I call coachable. And the fact is, a lot of guys at his level aren't coachable. I don't think. I think a lot of guys figure they're making the trainer and they're already a champion, and they just need someone to make sure they get in good shape. But with Chad, I'm able to reach him and explain to him when he's doing something wrong and point out his mistakes. And he, as opposed to a lot of people, he likes that. He likes when you tell him when he's doing something wrong. So on that end, I can't complain about the training at all.
And how happy about where he's at right now are you?
The theme for this fight for the last couple of weeks has been, and I've actually put it up on Twitter a couple times, ahead of schedule. Going to the last fight, we were very confident, we were ready, and for this fight, it just feels like he's ahead of schedule, he's sharper, he's in much better shape, because when we started training for the first half of the fight, I was actually kind of caught off guard at how out of shape he was, how far down the ladder we were starting to climb from. This time, he came into camp much earlier, and as a result, he started off 10 times stronger. I mean, it was like nothing big. So he's basically not starting over for this fight. He's just picking up where he left off from the last one. So I expect him to be, I'm expecting the fight of his career.
And when you think about how the fight's going to play out, what do you imagine?
I mean, a lot of it depends on how Hopkins reacts to Chad, because I've always said Chad's like a Roy Jones and a Mayweather in that the opponent has to react to him much more than he has to react to them. So it depends on how Hopkins deals with Chad, because Chad, I think, is going to set the tone and the pace and the distance, and it's going to establish control a lot more visibly than Hopkins will. So once we get that big lead, like Jermaine Taylor and some of those guys, Pascal, Pascal let Hopkins out to a lead, and that was a mistake for him. I think once Chad gets a lead, it'll be the type of thing where you're running a 100-yard dash, and if you let Chad to the 80 and you're not even at the 50 yet,